In this video, I want to explain to you how natural selection can lead to evolution of any organism. This is to GCSE level, so if you are studying A level, some of the terminology may not be complex enough for your particular course. Now, I want to take you through the example. It's a made-up hypothetical example of some monkeys, any old monkeys, any old jungle. Now here we've got some monkeys in the jungle, which they're all brown. All of them are brown. There's very little variation. So the allele or the gene frequency for this particular characteristic is extremely common. It doesn't mean it's fixed, it doesn't mean it's set in stone, because every so often you may well get a mutation where you may get a different fur colour or slightly different fur colour. In this particular example, I've got a green monkey. Now you might think green monkey is much more advantageous here because it will be more camouflaged. But that's only got an advantage if it needs to be camouflaged. So if there's no predators, it doesn't really matter. So consider the fact that it could be disadvantaged. This green monkey may well need to consume more food simply to have green pigment in its fur. And that way it's going to be outcompeted by the brown monkeys, and therefore the green monkey's got very little chance of survival. That's unless the environment changes, and that's what evolution is all about. The environment is constantly changing, and it may well change so that the green fur becomes a bit more advantageous. Now, it could become advantageous if there was a predator introduced to this particular area. So let's provide a predator. In this particular case, we'll just have a hunter. So don't forget now, this green monkey is camouflaged, but it's going to be outcompeted by these brown monkeys, unless the brown monkeys have a distinct disadvantage of being that brown colour. Right, so some of the brown monkeys have been killed simply because they haven't got the advantageous characteristic of being green, and the green monkey in this case has survived. And now, because there's less competition for it, it may well be able to survive, feed itself, and most importantly, because it survived, it can now reproduce. And reproduction is really, really important because it means it's going to pass on its genes. Now, if it passes on the gene for green fur, some of the offspring may well also inherit that advantageous characteristic. And there we have it. There's a few more green monkeys. So let's continue the process. In comes our selection pressure. So our hunter here is a selection pressure, and he's naturally selecting for the green fur. Get the idea here, naturally selecting, because the green fur is an advantageous characteristic now because it provides camouflage. Right, green monkeys survive, and of course they survive. They can now reproduce, pass on those genes. And we get an increase in population of green fur monkeys now. Now it looks like the population is a bit of a mixture, equal 50-50, brown versus green. The green have still got the distinct advantage, but only whilst the selection pressure is there. If the predator was removed, in this case the hunter, then the brown fur monkeys would have the advantage again. But they're still disadvantaged, the brown fur monkeys. And this allows the next generation of monkeys to primarily inherit the green fur gene, the green fur allele. And as you can see now, our population of monkeys is greatly changed from the beginning. Great shot. Now look what we have left. One brown fur monkey. And continue this cycle, the brown fur monkey may disappear, and the frequency of that particular gene could be completely zero. And the population of monkeys has now changed. So, I mentioned the word natural selection, and this is a key word here. The green fur, or the green gene, or the gene for green, is being naturally selected for. It gives these monkeys a better chance of surviving and passing on that gene. So over time, the monkeys have evolved. They have changed. Now you can use this explanation for any question on natural selection and evolution. So for example, if you was to write an answer, I would always talk about them being there's variation in the population, genetic variation, and it's worth talking about how that variation came around. Now I mentioned this at the start of the video, and that was by mutation, but of course variation is also provided by sexual reproduction. Now what does that do? In the good choice of wording is that simply provides an advantageous characteristic or inherited characteristics to the environment. Now here you would apply this to your particular question. So if it was a question about why birds may have a longer beak, you might say that inherited characteristics of longer beak is allowing birds to maybe probe a little bit deeper for its food, and those with shorter beaks can't quite get that food, so those longer beaks are giving the birds a better chance of survival. And of course a better chance of survival means that those organisms have a better chance of reproducing. So this is where the phrase survival of the fittest comes in. Fittest in terms of having the best chance of being able to reproduce. And it's about reproducing to pass on those genes. Passing those genes to the next generation. Now over several generations, or many generations, the species that the animals that are, or the plants that are being evolved may well be so different from the original organisms that a new species could form.